Scotty to me was never the typical little boy that I thought my little boy would be. I mean, like when he was about 2.5 years old, he had gotten a pair of underoos for Christmas. And I go in my bedroom and he's jumping on the bed in front of the mirror, which, is across from the bed. And he's jumping up and down with his arms fisted. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm Hulk Hogan. I want to be a wrestler." And I thought, oh my God.
This episode of the Unredacted Podcast is brought to you by Dragon Forge Consulting. Dragon Forge provides boutique consulting services for federal and commercial clients looking to expand their business in a turbulent time. Learn more by visiting their website at www.dragon-forge.net. That's www.dragon-forge.net.
With the altitude, I'm feeling
Oh, you're real comfortable.
Everybody on the flight was like, she might have had too much.
Did you encounter delays?
No. We were 20 minutes late taking off, so
Okay.
There was a slight delay, which I appreciated. The pilot said, due to the government shutdown, we'll be taking off 20 minutes late. They were trying to, wake up people. They're like, listen, call your congressman.
Yeah.
I was on the flight with John Thune.
Were you really?
And Pete Ricketts. I told them to get back to work and start doing their jobs.
No, come on. You're making up?
No, I tell them that every time. They don't like... No, Pete Ricketts was right across from me. For the record, so Are we recording now?
We are already recording, so...
So I'm from Nebraska.
We knew that.
Pete Ricketts, from Nebraska. I think he's a billionaire, right? The man makes a lot of money. He was slumming it in the back of Comfort Plus with me. I want to dislike Pete Ricketts because he is a senator, and by default, I dislike anyone who is a member of Congress right now as a personal, just who I am as a person.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
but
good.
I had to like him a little bit more because before he got into the Senate, he could have bought the whole plane, and now as a member of Congress, he realizes the optics. Like, I'm watching him. On the other hand, Senator John Thune has never once declined an upgrade. I know if Senator John Thune is on the flight, I actually will not be in first class. I will probably be in the back of the plane. Because the man takes his upgrade every time. I look at him with disdain every time because if I see him waiting for the flight, I look at him and I know this is why I'm only getting a mimosa and a snack pack today and not a full oatmeal on my flight to DCA.
This says everything that people need to know about you, though. You're flying all the time into Washington.
Not that much. Just it comes in cycles, but enough that I know that John Thune has his name on his backpack, and we should all think less of him because of that. Just for the optics of it. He's going to forget that it's his.
It's like he's going to elementary school.
Yeah.
You got to put your name on your backpack.
Yeah, he might be delightful, but again, I like to rank. It's important to have favorites. And Pete Ricketts is now ahead of John Thune by far.
Interesting.
Because he slums it. Again, the man could buy the whole plane, and he's in Comfort Plus. Yeah. Shout out. John Thune, on the other hand, is like, I will accept my upgrade.
So, and when he gets an upgrade, does his security detail takes over all the spots?
Well, not all of them, but enough. I recognize those guys. I see you, Capitol Hill Police, sitting in my seat.
Yeah. So it's not just him taking the upgrade.
It's not him. Well, his staff. Enough people. Because again, for me, I'm poor. I don't pay for upgrades, but I fly just enough that sometimes I get them, and I feel really good because I'm going to have 2 mimosas like I did today. Roll into DC. I'm like, Washington looks great today, Brian.
Oh, Lindy. So it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
And for everyone at home, we're doing a live recording, if that's a thing. We're seeing each other in real life.
It's a thing.
As opposed to over an electronic medium of the internet, which is always cool.
Yeah.
And why are you in town?
I'm here for Spookstock this weekend, Brian.
Spookstock. What is Spookstock?
If you know, you know. And if you don't know, you're not allowed to say. But ching. I mean, I get to see who is playing this time. Gin Blossoms and Tonic.
Oh.
Gin and Tonic.
Oh.
I would like to sing some of the songs for you, but I will spare you.
That's clever.
It's a fundraiser, right? I do like it. I attend a lot of events. I enjoy all events. I do like the vibe of Spookstock, just because it's like built up this whole notion of like, and mostly, I mostly like it for the cause they're giving back to, right? They're supporting the beneficiaries of fallen special operators, shadow warriors, all of that. So Clearance Jobs is honored to be a part of it, allowed to participate. They have like a lot of career events and resources for the beneficiaries. And just for me, the takeaway, I've gotten to meet a lot of those folks and even link them up with opportunities, obviously, across our Clearance Jobs network. So for me, the concert is one thing, right? If you're just attending the concert and that's all you do, you're probably not doing enough for the community. But if you're using that to leverage and like build what you can do across the community, it's a really cool event to be a part of, like to meet folks that are in that community and try to, do what you can to help out.
Yeah, and of course, I'm leading the witness a little bit. I went to Spookstock many, many, many times, and when I stood up the Defense Intelligence Memorial Foundation, it was a recipient of the funds from Spookstock. So, very grateful for that kind of partnership. And there's some things behind the curtain that folks don't commonly know. One of the things is that for the kids that you see there on stage, they are graduating for their undergrad mostly, but some postgrad. But they are graduating, so the concert is a reward for them to see, and like you're saying about their job prospects, this is their opportunity to start to network within the community and find other jobs. What I think is really clever that they do is, yes, there's a lot of national security focused folks, but there's also a lot of power companies and consulting companies, not DC consulting, but like, Wall Street, New York kind of consulting companies, financiers, very interesting kind of mix of folks. So they don't have to take a national security focused job. Obviously, there's more of those folks in the room, but they could go after those other kinds of jobs that are in the normal world, not the national security
They
world.
could be normies. Yeah, I mean, I do think that's an important thing too. That's my big mantra right now, right? With all of the candidate activity out there. So regardless whether it's like a college graduate beneficiary, the community of hiring opportunities is bigger than just national security. And I do think the benefit of the vibe of Spookstock, which is like, hey, if you know, like the people who know go. The people who know things know other people, right? So even if you don't want to work in national security, you want to work in finance, you want to work in, retail, you want to work somewhere else, there's going to be folks who have connections across. I mean, I think I've met a few artists, right? Or creative types. Like there's opportunities, in whatever career set or field that you're in. And I mean, the benefit of becoming an executive is you tend to know people, right? And have connections. And if you're not willing to share them by the time you get to an executive level at a company, like really, what are you doing with your life, right? You should be at that point where you are a benefactor to any young person you come across, but especially those who have, made that sacrifice of losing someone close to them. So, I mean, I think that's what I like about it. And participating in the career events and everything is people are so honored and excited to be asked to help. I mean, that's one of my always like life takeaways. Like, never underestimate the power of asking someone to help you. Like, that is an amazing thing because people want to help. A lot of people just don't know how. I mean, you have a lot of experience with this running a lot of nonprofits, but like someone is like just being the person who's willing to stand up and tell people, hey, we need you, help.
Well, and being invited into it, right? When someone says, I need help, that's an invitation for you to contribute your talent and skills. Great. But I don't know to help unless you invite me or know that you need help. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an incredible honor. One other little interesting thing about the kids is that they often just kind of know this thing is happening and that they're going and it's affiliated with whatever one of the big charities are. So there's the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, the CIA Officers Memorial Foundation, the Defense Intelligence Memorial Foundation, and then there's some other ones too. But those kids finally meet each other as a group at Spookstock. So the Special Operation Warrior kids will have picnics and stuff that are kind of focused to them. So what's interesting to see is they'll start just talking to each other, because there's a series of events that occur before the concert and after the concert. And they realize, and it's a very fun thing to see, where they go, oh, I lost my dad too. Or I lost my mom. Like, what's your story? Then they hear each other's stories, and now they have a new bond, because now they've finally seen each other in a new way. And that's really cool.
Oh, I'm so impressed by it. We call them kids. They're like adult people.
Yeah, they're 20.
Like, there's 20. Everyone's a kid to me. But that's I came, away from the event last year. These young people are like had business cards made, right? Like had ideas like, they came away from that conversation like, hey, this is what I want to do with my career in life. Like they were taking advantage of the opportunity that they had to get in front of a lot of folks. And just, that level of, they've already given so much, right? And the fact that they're still willing to come to an event like that and just participate in the community. And, I'm beyond impressed anytime I attend an event like that and get to interact with those folks.
So today we're going to bring one of these stories into the podcast. We were very lucky to get Sandy Wirtz, who is the mother of Scotty Wirtz, who was a DIA civilian who was killed in Syria, and we're going to hear her story. But we wanted to give some background to the audience so they understand kind of what the course of events are, because in the interview, as Sandy's talking, it presumes you already know the history and the story. So we're going to share that story with everybody. So on the 16th of January in 2019, Scotty was out with a couple of other folks in from different agencies in Menjib, Syria. And some of those folks who were with him were Shannon Kent, who was with the National Security Agency, was also a Special Forces Chief Warrant Officer, John Farmer, and Gadir Thahir, who was a translator. They were all going to a restaurant in order to do an operation. So we don't know all the details, but it was more likely it was probably something like a pre-surveillance operation or getting ready to meet somebody. Now, this is at a point in time in Syria where the civil war was raging. So the reason why there was a big interagency group there is because there was so much that had to get done on the ground. It was a very quiet time. So unfortunately, they were meeting in this restaurant, and a suicide bomber entered the restaurant and detonated and killed all four of them. There was one survivor, a guy who's mentioned several times by Sandy, named John Turnbull. John lost his sight, and he's got shrapnel all throughout his body. But he did survive, and he still goes around and tells the story. And this coming Veterans Day, he's been invited by the president to be present, and he has asked, and we'll see what happens, but he's asked the communication team to honor Shannon, Scotty, John, and Gadir because he says that he's here because of them. And if he's ever honored at a veterans event like this one coming up, he wants to be he wants their stories to be told. He doesn't want to be just the token veteran. So he's a very, very strong individual, very, very, very interesting guy, and a big heart, huge heart. He actually named his son that he had after he came back from Syria, Scotty. So Scotty is mentioned in two ways in this interview. So we're very excited to share it with you, and here's our interview with Sandy.
Blind guys in this lodge, and somebody starts screaming, and so all these 5 blind guys run outside and said, "What's going on? What's going on?" And they said, "There's a bear. There's a bear out here." And so one of the guys said, "Well, I've got a gun," and it's like, to hear John tell the story, yeah, here's 5 blind guys out there.
With a
One's
gun.
got a gun because there's a bear.
Good. Gosh. You're in a good spot. Now you have to keep talking because I got to adjust here.
Okay. My name is Sandy Wirtz, and I'm here with my dear friend Brian Drake. I'm going to help him out and make his podcast famous forever.
Famous forever. That's right.
My favorite friend's famous forever podcast.
For those of us not tracking, Sandy made the mistake of giving me her phone, and I was able to type in title as favorite person. Favorite person.
Favorite person, that's right.
Not favorite friend. Favorite person.
Yes.
That puts me on a whole nother level.
Yeah, a whole new level.
Yeah. Let's start off with this. Tell us about Scotty. Tell us about Scotty when he was a little boy. What was his personality type like?
Well, Scotty to me was never the typical little boy that I thought my little boy would be. I mean, like when he was about 2.5 years old, he had gotten a pair of underoos for Christmas because they were popular at the time. And I go in my bedroom, and he's jumping on the bed in front of the mirror, which, is across from the bed. And he's jumping up and down with his arms fisted. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm Hulk Hogan. I want to be a wrestler." And I thought, oh, my God, he was like 2. Then as he went through grade school, his interests were always, he was athletic. He played soccer, but he got into skateboarding, which at the time was not real popular. So he wanted one of these skateboarding haircuts. And he went to an all-boy Catholic school, so it didn't quite fit the mold. So that was always kind of a battle. But I did encourage the skateboarding because it was a very good sport, and he worked hard at it. And now I laugh when I look back, and I think I used to go with him and take videos, and he'd be like skating on stairway handles and stuff. And I look at those and I think, what kind of a mother was I? I was filming this poor boy, and he could have killed himself. And the one final joke that we had, he wanted to be the next Tony Hawk. And I said, "Scotty, you can't be Tony Hawk. That's just not a real job." But anyway.
Tony Hawk's a multi-millionaire.
Yeah. Well, when that finally happened, I heard it on the news, and that night Scotty called me and he said, "Mom, I just want you to know, Tony Hawk just bought his mother $1 million house." I said, "Yeah, Scott, I heard that on the news, but I think you're much better off being a Navy SEAL." So you achieved that. And then, of course, the all through high school, he went to an all-boy Catholic high school. Men for others was their motto. And he just decided that he was going to be a Navy SEAL. And he was dead set on doing this. And I remember as it progressed and he joined the Navy, I said to him one time, I said, "Scott, you better have a backup plan, because if you don't make it to be a SEAL, you're not like getting out of the Navy. You're still." He said, "Oh, no, Mom, I'm going to be a SEAL." I mean, there was just never an ounce of doubt in his mind that he wasn't going to do this. And sure enough, I remember it was a Sunday morning. I was getting on a plane, and I was in Atlanta, and I got the phone call. And it was like this half dead, "Mom, I made it. I made it."
Made it.
And so he made it through Butts. Yes. So, and then, the rest is kind of history. He loved it. Another fun phone call that I got was like, "Mom, you're not going to believe this. This is really big." He said, "I got picked to go to Marine Corps sniper training." And he said, this is big, Mom. You got to be good. And he's gone on. And I said, Scotty, that's what every mother wants her little boy to grow up and be, is a sniper. But I was very proud of him. And then, he was with the SEALs, and then he just was disappointed that they weren't using him. The SEALs back then weren't what they are today. They didn't they weren't involved in all of the things that they're involved now. So he left the Navy and became a contractor. And again, being the mom, I said, because that's, at the time, a lot of talk about how much money these contractors were making. And I said to him, "Scotty, please tell me you're not doing this for the money." And he said, "No, Mom, I'm really not." He said, "I am trained. I am trained to be the best there is, and the Navy's not using me. So I'm going to go somewhere where I'm being used. And that's when he did, he worked for Maersk, and he actually did a stint on the Maersk, Alabama, after Captain
Phillips,
after Captain Phillips. But he did quite a few, and I think the irony is when he finally got the job with the DIA, I was so relieved. He had a real job. He had insurance. He was getting a paycheck because of course, I look back on it and I'm very, very happy. But at the time, as a mom, I mean, he'd work for these contractors and they'd hand him a few $100,000 and say, "Oh, we'll call you in 6 months." Well, he did things like him and his buddies went and spent like 2 months in Vietnam. And then they had a condo in Thailand. So I was always just kind of afraid he was going to get into this lifestyle and not want to go back to work. But that never happened. But at least working for the government, he didn't get these big paychecks, once or twice a year. He got paid every 2 weeks, like normal people. And he had insurance. And so I remember and I was living and working here in D.C., so that was nice, too, that I could see him more often.
It's so interesting to hear you say that you were relieved coming into DIA because being a SEAL is not safe. He was taking a lot of risk. I heard one story that I know you've already heard, but I'll share it for the audience so they know. He was doing a mission in a place, and he was doing it on the very high sea state. And they had to board the ship. It was a hostage rescue, so he had to board this ship, and it had to be done at night. And they were coming from a smaller vessel that was mated up to that larger vessel, and they were climbing up a ladder. And because the sea state was so chaotic, it was very dangerous. You could have fallen off, gone right into the water, and drowned. Well, he was going up this ladder, and somehow the ship shifted and he got his foot caught in the ladder and then fell down and was upside down with his weapon, of course, above his head, and the boat's going up and down 20, 30 feet at a time, and so he's getting banged against the ship, and so his shipmates then got him onto the ship. But just that one little thing could have compromised the mission because, he wasn't making a noise. You can't, and it's at night, so you can't call out because then you're compromising everything. So he's silent as a church mouse, getting his head banged into the side of the vessel, and then he gets picked up and rescued, and everything's fine, and the mission was successful. But to illustrate, not a safe job.
Well, I know, but it was, to me, you don't know what you don't know. And now, of course, I realize. But I thought, the Defense Intelligence Agency sounded pretty legit. And, it was. So, yeah, now I realize my naivety. But
what did you know about the DIA at the time?
Yeah, nothing. I really did not. They did a good job of keeping undercover.
And so what did he tell you it was? What did he tell you the job was?
He didn't really say a whole lot. It was a government job as far as I knew, and he was going to have insurance and get a regular paycheck. And he had been a contractor, so it was kind of along the same lines. And, he was always able, with the contracting jobs, to tell me where he was. I remember one time the contractor was hired by the CIA, and he was posting pictures on Facebook of him fishing. And, he's got a scarf wrapped around his head. And I thought, oh, my gosh, what is he doing? And I was very concerned because I thought, oh, he lost his head. He's not supposed to be advertising what he's doing. So he got home, and I said, that really bothered me. I said, did you get in trouble? Where he said, Mom. He said, I was supposed to look like that. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I was working for the CIA, and the whole bottom of that boat was filled with surveillance equipment. And we were supposed to look like we were just having fun. Oh, I know. They had a drink in their hand, and I saw a picture once with him and the guy that was with him, and the guy sent me the picture, and I said, are you two like smoking cigarettes? And he said, it's a cover. It was a cover, which I didn't even know if he was kidding or not. I mean, you know.
Could have been.
But I realized then it probably was. They were just supposed to be looking like they were having one heck of a good deep sea fishing trip, and they were working for the CIA. So all kinds of things like that are just really intriguing.
Yeah.
And I really was very respectful. I didn't ask him a lot of questions. I mean, I asked him questions, but I didn't ask him anything that I thought was sensitive. And he would talk about his deployments. Well, he especially liked, because Jack, being, you know, a fighter pilot and shot down, and they had that warrior.
This is your husband, Jack.
Yes, they had this warrior, you know, bond, and they would talk about the, you know, things like that. But I would just kind of listen. I didn't know. I didn't understand, you know. I mean, I would think like, oh, SSA. I think that was Scotty's. Was Scotty an SS? Service Security GSA, Global Security Agent. Every once in a while, they'd be throwing around the acronyms, and I say, okay, like, what does that stand for? I try to think real hard so I didn't have to answer, but they would throw those around, and it was interesting to learn about all of that.
Did you feel like he was appreciative if you asked questions, or you felt that was too invasive? Or
no, he was smart enough to know what he could and could not say. But I tell you what, I really wish now that he's gone. I remember one time he was talking about being in Syria, and that he'd been doing this surveillance, and the woman he was working with, who I think back now, it's probably Shannon Ken, but he never said names. And now I meet these people who work with Scotty, and I think, oh, I wonder. But anyway, after reading the book that Joe wrote about Shannon, I think he was talking about how they had done this surveillance like 5 days in a row, and it was time for the meeting. And they get there, and there's a lady standing on the corner. And Scotty goes, you know, I'm sorry, this mission is aborted. And, you know, the woman he was with said, like, why? What are you talking about? He said, there's a woman standing over in the corner. So what? Well, she hasn't been there for 5 days in a row, and we just can't take any chances. And apparently this woman was really upset because she really wanted to have this meeting she was supposed to have, but he couldn't do it. And I thought, well, you know, he didn't. That was his job, and I mean, I kind of respected the fact that it was. I mean, I liked hearing about how he did his job. You know, most people would say, you know, what's a woman standing on the corner? But you know, kind of his sixth sense, I guess it was.
Right.
He knew that, and I would laugh when. I remember he was home one time, and my dad was in the hospital, so we went to see him, and we're walking through the hospital parking lot, and Scotty goes, I bet you didn't even pay any attention to that guy sitting in the truck. I said, no. He said, there was a guy sitting in the truck all by himself in there. I said, so? He said, well, you got to pay attention to stuff like that. And I said, yeah, he was probably some guy who dropped his wife off to see her mother and sitting in the hospital parking lot. But and when I got my job in D.C., I was like, Mom, I don't know if you should be taking the Metro or not. And I was like, Scotty, I go through the Pentagon on my Metro ride. There are men in uniform that's on the Metro, but it did kind of, he was always so kind of carefree and footloose, but to see him transition into being this very conscientious kind of security type person.
It's so interesting. Yeah, it's hard to turn off, right? So he's trained to see all that all the time.
Yes.
And so he's got his head on a swivel looking at everything. Did you see that? Did you know that?
Oh, I know.
Oh, Mom.
Yeah, I know. And it really is. I am very sad that I didn't know then what I know now, because I didn't know what questions to ask. And, you know, like I just said, asking names. You know, he would talk about this guy and this girl, and he had no reason to say their name. I mean, I don't think he was trying to protect their identity. It wasn't anything like that. But when I meet these people now and they say they worked with Scotty, I thought, well, I wonder if one of those stories I heard was this person and stuff. Like one boy, they were doing some training. This might have been DIA days.
Okay.
They were in they took him to Washington State, and they were going to do some training there. And they blindfolded him and tied their hands, put him in the back of a truck, in a trunk, and dropped him off. And Scotty laughed because he had done some pre-surveillance, so he kind of had a feel for where they were. But one of the things they had to do is they went into this ravine, and there was a Jeep that was like face down in the ravine, and his friend, who I do know now because he told me this, Scotty told me the story, but he was with him, and I didn't know that it was Justin that was with him. But anyway, they find this Jeep face down, and Justin's like, "Oh, we'll never get this thing out of there." And Scotty said, "Sure we will. There's nothing to it." And Justin's like, "Yeah, so what are we going to do?" And Scotty goes, "We're going to drive it out." And they're like, "You can't." And Justin's like, "You can't drive it out." And when Scotty told the story, he said when they got back, even the instructor said, "Wow, nobody's ever done that before." So Scotty was kind of proud of himself, too, that he figured out. And I'm pretty sure that was DIA.
It sounds like it. There is a regimen of training that they do that's creative problem solving. It's usually only taught to folks in special operations. But, of course, he probably already had some experience in it, so he cheated a little bit. That's okay.
Well, plus he had a Jeep, and he used to do off-roading when he was in high school. So he did have a little experience. I hope not that kind, but if he did, I wouldn't know about it.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah. So I want to talk about how you and I connected. So for the background of the folks listening, I of course established this thing called the Defense Intelligence Memorial Foundation after Scotty and Shannon passed, and you've heard this story many times. I'll just tell it for the benefit of the audience. When Scotty passed away, I never knew Scotty. I didn't ever cross paths with him because he was overseas for most of his missions. I was always in the D.C. area. And it's pretty rare, actually, for somebody to encounter somebody in that career field because he was part of the support element, so making sure that operations forward were secure and would work. So it's one of those quiet roles that's incredibly vital in order to make sure the agency keeps doing what it does. So, but it's also very risky because you're in far-flung places around the world, and you're encountering folks that want to do harm to the United States, and so you're trying to secure operations who they don't want you to see that happen. And so Scotty got caught up in that. But when he passed, we were about the same age. And it did profoundly affect me. And at the time, the director was Bob Ashley,
yes,
our friend. And he sent out a note to the workforce. And what he said was, and now, so everyone kind of is tracking, DIA had not lost a person in combat for...
Well, September 11th, wasn't it?
Well, no, we'd lost folks in Iraq.
Okay.
But it had been a long time. I want to say at least 8 years. I can go back and check. But at DIA, everyone kind of changes jobs every 3 years. So the agency's collective memory about what do you do now was kept in manuals. They really didn't know what to do. And some of the things that were that the CIA is really good about are the softer touch that the agency needs to embrace. Like, it's very easy for a government agency to just kind of do the cold, well, here's your benefits, here's the payout for insurance, and, give us a phone call if you have any questions. That's very easy to do because that's what the rules say. And I knew that was already happening to you, happening to Jack. And I didn't like that feeling. I felt like, well, if we've lost that connection back to families, then what are we doing? Because we're all connected in that way. We could all be forward. We could all be there. So it did profoundly affect me in lots of ways. And so Bob Ashley sends out this email to the workforce asking if there's a way that we can support the Wirtz family and do a scholarship in Scotty's name or something. He didn't say that, but it was what people were talking about. And I had already been thinking about creating this organization because I was tied into Spookstock, and I was trying to figure out a way that we could better involve the Defense Intelligence Enterprise. So I created this organization, and I told Bob about it. It's like, actually, I've done that. We might have a way to support Scotty's family, but I need some help. And this is very early days. It got off the ground. But anyway, months and months later, I didn't appreciate that, like, you're starting this charity, you've got folks that you're trying to support, and you don't have their phone number. You don't have an email address, right? You got to go and research that. And the government is prohibited by law to share that contact information. Oh. So you have to find a way to do it. And I couldn't use my official position to do it either. Like, I can't go through the HR system and pull the information. That's not okay.
Oh, my gosh.
That's illegal. So I had to start from scratch.
Did you Google Scotty to get... Did you have to Google him to...
Yeah, so that's where we started, right? It's like, okay, so where is his residence? St. Louis. And so that's how we started to connect with you. So now I'm going to push back to you. The part of the story I don't know. Your phone rings, and Brian Drake is on the other end of that phone. Well, tell us what happened that day.
Well, we've talked about this before, but that phone call from you was, I think it started our great friendship, because I will never, there's some things that happen that you never forget. We were in Florida, we were in Inglewood, Florida, for the memorial service of one of Jack's fellow fighter pilots. Even though Jack was Air Force, Tom was Navy fighter pilot. And he had passed away from Agent Orange problems. And we were at his memorial service. And, I don't know, Janet was doing something. Anyway, we're in Florida. I took a walk all by myself. I had just bought a car, which was another Scotty thing. He had, when he was in California, he got this little C300, very cute, very nice little Mercedes, and he's getting deployed. He said, Mom, I want to give you my car. And I said, I don't know, Scott, they're expensive. And I was working here in D.C., and he said, no, I really want you to have it. So I fly all the way to San Diego. Jack meets me in San Diego. We drive the car all the way back. And it was a 2001. Scotty was killed in 2019. And the past couple times before he was home, he said, Mom, you need to get a different car. And I said, I know, but I really like this car, and Mercedes are supposed to last forever. So anyway, his last time home, we were supposed to go, and something happened, but he gave me this guy's card, and he said he was leaving again. He said, just go see this guy. Well, of course, then, Scotty passes away, but the connection to us is... So I ended up getting a navy blue car, which is okay, but I wanted a white one with either a red convertible top or a blue convertible top. And my salesman in St. Louis said, I don't make them like that. They don't make them. So I'm just, it's kind of the anniversary of Scotty. Our dear friend died, and I'm just kind of taking a walk, and it's, Florida, so the weather's wonderful. And I start seeing all these white Mercedes convertibles with red tops and blue tops, and I'm like thinking, I'm going to call my sales. I took pictures of them. I really did. So I'm kind of in this, really kind of weird mood, memories, losing a friend, seeing the cars and everything. And all of a sudden my phone rings and it's 202, and I thought, oh, no, boy, what can this... I mean, I knew the 202 area code. Said, hello, my name is Brian Drake, and I'm with the DIA, and I'm calling in regard to your son, which immediately cheered me up. I mean, that was a good thing. And then he explained about the scholarship, and I was like, oh, my gosh, because one thing, Scotty did not go to college. He was Jesuit educated in high school, and I made him take Latin, so when he was going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and he was just so set on being in the Navy. And the recruiters came to his high school, and so I was tickled to death that there was going to be a scholarship in Scotty's name, so at least there was some sort of higher education. in his memory and stuff. But it just made my day. I wasn't having the greatest day, but just talking to Brian and his dedication and his respect. Your respect. It was like, now is this, he wanted my permission, and I thought, well, that's really nice. I didn't even know you had to ask permission to do things like that, but he was just so respectful, and it made me feel so good that, not that I ever felt Scotty wasn't honored and the DIA was very, very good, but it just really touched my heart that he was so respectful, and I could just hear the devotion and dedication in this conversation, and we just have been great friends ever since. And then we'd come to D.C., and you would make sure that we were taken care of, and it was just developed into a wonderful relationship.
It feels really good to hear you say that. I'll tell you, on the other end of that phone line, I was really nervous because I had called many of the same kind of research process that we were talking about. I'd called lots of families, some of which were not receptive. Like it's an open wound. I don't need to tell you. But I learned that it's an open wound, and sometimes you don't want that phone to ring ever again, especially to hear something like, "Well, I'm affiliated with the Defense Intelligence Agency," and then, "Yeah, I don't want to talk to you again ever." And unfortunately, we did have a couple of families that were like that, and not their fault. Absolutely not their fault.
Right.
It's just what resulted. So, it's a little bit like being a telemarketer. You don't know if they're just going to summarily hang up on you or curse you out or whatever it was. So I was pretty happy that you took the call in the first place. Who picks up the phone nowadays? You don't even pick up the phone for strange phone numbers.
Well, probably if I hadn't worked in D.C. and, had that. I mean, I just 202. I knew to answer that call.
Well, I was lucky then.
Yes, yeah. Well, you probably would have left a message, and I would have called you back. But yeah, it's just, I will always remember that phone call for that reason. It was just, I wasn't having a great day, and then I was just really happy. I couldn't wait to get back to the house after my walk and tell Janet and Jack about, I just got this wonderful phone call, and Scotty's going to be honored. And then, just going to the DIA and getting to see the wall and the conference room that you took us to see. And by the way, Dogs for Our Brave, which is a St. Louis organization that somebody donated a dog and wanted it to be named Scotty, so guess who's there? They're having a new, incredible new facility built in St. Louis, and they called me the other day, and they're going to name their boardroom the Scotty Wirtz boardroom.
Oh, that's nice.
So, yes, it really is.
Yeah, Scotty left quite an impression on everyone he connected with, and so what you're talking about are a couple of memorials that we have at the building. One is the memorial that we have for everybody, but
yes.
He has his own conference room that was dedicated by Mission Services, which technically is where he fell up underneath in the organization. And so that was donated to him, or set aside for him. I think the other thing I wanted to drill into is the first recipient of the Scotty Wirtz Scholarship was Marie Mickley. And you got to meet her.
Yes, I did. And it was also very special because her studies were international law. And from a very young age, I tried to, I will never forget that saying from Mark Twain: travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and I forget what the third one is, and closed-mindedness or something. And that just always stuck with me. And from a very young age, I took, he was in kindergarten. I took him out of school. We went to Mexico. Poor kid got sick as a dog on bad food, I guess. But I just always, when he was in high school, his Latin class took a trip to Europe every year, and I got to be really good friends with the Latin teacher. And Scotty went to DeSmet for 4 years. I was a chaperone at DeSmet for 5 years. So I went to DeSmet longer than Scotty did. But I really did try to introduce him to this, and just picking the jobs that he did and the travel that he did. I mean, we had a contest once who would get to the most continents first, because my job also took me out of the country, and he beat me because he got to Australia. But that was kind of and then one time, one of his not a contractor job, but he was the bodyguard for a very wealthy man in Hong Kong, son. And he talked about this man in Hong Kong who was the wealthiest man in Hong Kong, and he built buildings. And he said he owns a restaurant that is the top of a building, and the restaurant revolves or anything. Well, I just happened to be in Hong Kong, and I'm sitting there, and I said, you know what? I think this is the restaurant that Scotty was the bodyguard for this man's son. My phone rings. It's Scotty. I was like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe this. I'm in Hong Kong, and I'm sitting in this restaurant. Is this the same guy you're talking about? He said, yep, that's him. So it was really fun, some of the connections that we had on things like that. But I did try to make him open-minded and appreciate different cultures and things like that.
And you saw that in Marie?
Oh, I'm sorry, I got off track. Yes, so when she was studying, the fact that she was studying international law got me to thinking that, you know what, this is good. I like the international aspect of it as a Scotty memorial thing, because he was very international with the jobs that he did and the places that he worked and things like that.
Did he ever tell you why he went into DIA as opposed? It sounds like his contractor job was pretty interesting, but why did he go into the government?
I think because he wanted steady work. Those contractor jobs were very popular and very abundant for a long period, but I think of course, this is just my opinion. I don't want to get any contractor mad at me, but, there's a thing about overcharging the government and all that. So I think some of those jobs just kind of went by the wayside. And I think Scotty he was 42 years old, so for a SEAL, that's kind of old. And I think he was just looking for something a little more stable. And I think a couple of his buddies were working here too, and they suggested that he sign up for here too.
Wow. So, so now some time has passed, and we all kind of went through the trauma of it. I mean, no one can compare to what you went through. When you look back on this time and the years that have passed, what makes you smile the most when you think about Scotty?
Just that the dignity of it, the way people remember. You don't really appreciate that until you live it, and until it's your son that people are talking about, and the fact that people still remember. Just a few days ago, somebody did something for me, and I just thank them profusely, knowing that a friend of mine from high school who I hadn't seen in many years, but another Scotty connection with my high school. His mass was at the cathedral, and I went to high school right across the street. So I reconnected because the Rosetta Kane girls were lining the cathedral because they knew that this was my son. But anyway, this girl made me a quilt that is a masterpiece. It's entirely red, white, and blue. She's got the trident on it. She's got Navy everything. She's got, SEAL Mom, Sandy, and everything Navy, and it's beautiful. And we had their annual auction, and this year she made me a red, white, and blue wreath. And it's such a profound looking thing. It's a wooden cross, and it's got a flag almost like a flag scarf draped over it. And I just looked at it, and it was like, wow, this
Sounds
is
beautiful.
very significant. And then it's got a light in it. It's faith, family, freedom. So the words light up. But this is the second thing that she has done for me. 6 years ago, she did the quilt, which is, I mean, it's truly a work of art. I mean, she gave it to me at our alumni breakfast, and everybody in the whole place was just like, wow. And then to give me this, which is so special. So I told her, I said, what means the most to me is that you still think of Scotty, that you see something patriotic and you think of Scotty, and I got to get that for Sandy. Which is when I thanked her, she said, I just saw that and I thought of Scotty and I thought you should have that. Yeah, well, she made the wreath, but the wooden cross with the thing. So, and it's like, the DIA naming the boardroom, and then that fabulous display that you have for everybody there. But Dogs for a Brave has got a new veterans liaison, and he's got PTSD. He's not, he doesn't have any physical injuries, but he is an absolutely, it reminds me of you, Brian. He's just very conscientious and very hardworking. But I could tell the other day when he called me, it was like something was going on. I could just tell he was excited. So, we did the general talk about this, talk about that, and he said, well, I really have to tell you something. And he said, we're getting a new facility. I said, yeah, I've seen the sketches and stuff. And he said, well, I just want you to know that we're going to have a boardroom, and it's going to be the Scotty Wirtz boardroom. And, Scotty didn't know them, and one of their volunteers donated the dog. But then I did get involved only because, number one, I wanted to thank them for thinking of my son, but just the way they kind of adopted me, and it's just, they said, we want to remember Scotty. Scotty was St. Louis. They're St. Louis. Scotty was special. And I thought it's just wonderful that people really do. You see so much, not so much, but there's a lot of disrespect and not such nice things that go on in our world today. But boy, when it comes to being American and having that appreciation for our service members, I really am happy when I see that part of people coming out. Yeah,
It's really special. So what gives you energy now? What are you up to nowadays?
Well, now that I've given up on my volunteer jobs, there's an organization in St. Charles County where we live. There's a veterans museum. And first of all, I met this lady and said, you really should do a display of your son, which I said, yeah, I will. But now one of the men in my neighborhood is on the board, and so he's really been after me to do that, to put together this display. And I really do have a lot of things that I could put on display, not to mention another cute little Scotty story. When his grandpa on his dad's side, regular old, macho kind of guy, he went out one Christmas. Scotty's birthday was December 12th, and Scotty was going to be a year old, or what had just turned a year old. His grandpa went out and bought him, Scotty, and one of his girl cousins, who was just a few months older. He bought him sailor suits. Scotty had a little navy blue sailor suit, and Chrissy had the white dress. And he bought that, which everybody's like, wow, Rich never does things like that. That was pretty special. But thank God we took a lot of pictures of Scotty in that sailor suit, because who knew? He was going to grow up to be what he was.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and I still have I have that little navy suit. And, I know I'm overly sentimental, but I just can't give that to anybody. I don't want to give it to Goodwill. And so I've got things like that I think I could donate for a display for him, and I like to write, and they want the story, so I'm going to spend my time helping with that and writing. I've thought about writing, raising Scotty or raising a Navy SEAL or just something, because I'm a SEAL mom, so maybe I have to write a book.
Yeah, why don't you write a book? The rest of them are writing books.
SEALs write books, so why can't a SEAL's mom write a book? Yes.
You're missing out.
Yes. But so I think I would like to devote some of my time to doing that. Plus I have, and again, I sound like I'm complaining. I'm really not. But, I probably have 50 or 60 coins just from different places. And now that I'm a part of the Navy SEAL Foundation, Scotty's dad has had a coin made. There's a lot of SEALs who have coins. And I have these from the moms and dads that I meet at Navy SEAL Foundation events. And so I've got all these coins and just so many awards that he got from the DIA, which they beautifully framed and everything. I just want to do something special with, I think I have enough stuff to fill our whole house and just make it my own Navy SEAL museum. But I want to devote some time to doing that and making sure that when I'm gone, because I didn't have any other kids, so he doesn't have any brothers or sisters, and his dad's got a good sized family, but I don't, and so I want to make sure that I've got something of his that I can pass around into the future Wirtz generation.
Well, and we didn't even talk about his display at the DIA Museum.
Oh, that I couldn't believe how dignified that was. And something else about the DIA. In July, they had a ceremony, and I think it was, I didn't know you. I didn't know anybody at that time. And it was very dignified, and I was just so touched. But there is one thing that I never saw before, never expected. Okay, you know how large the hallway is, and we're walking down the hallway, and it's just completely lined. Somebody told me everybody in the building was there, and I was very touched by that. But, I just wanted to just say thank you to everybody as I'm walking down the hall, but, it was just too emotional. So I have my eyes, I'm walking, and I'm looking straight in front of me, and I see these two dogs, and I thought, oh my gosh, isn't that neat? And I sometimes I feel ashamed saying that I lost it over the dogs, but I lost it over the dogs because as I got close, I was watching them, and I saw there were two dogs and two boys with them. I saw those boys tap the dog on the top of the head, and when I walked by, those dogs bowed.
Right.
And in fact, I got their names, and I wrote them a thank you note. I even went out and got dog stamps for service dog stamps that I could put on these things, because I told them, I said, that was like, for some reason, that just really touched me. That was the most dignified thing, I think, that it was just so special to me. And like my connection with John Turnbull, who was the only survivor of this, his devotion to all of us to make sure that we know that, Scotty and John Farmer and Shannon and Gadir, the Syrian girl, that they're not going to be forgotten. And he has, he's going to he's invited to Trump's speech at Arlington on Veterans Day. And they did an interview with him, and he said, I will do this, but you have to promise me that you will mention Scotty and Shannon and John Farmer and Gadir. So he's got that commitment too. So that's like a bond that I really was surprised, because he could have very well never won. I mean, he's blind. He's got shrapnel all over his body. He's always cold. He always hurts. In fact, they're doing some speculation work on him now to see if they can't, with all the new eye things, there are nerves in his eyes that they might someday be able to do something for him. But, he's totally blind, and he lost one eye completely. But just sometimes I I could ask John this, but I haven't. But, I would like to say, are you tired? Do you get tired of always having this on your mind? Because, like I talk to him a couple times a week, and it's always about, it's about the kids. It's always happy, but it's always because of that, our relationship because of Scotty. So I just wonder if it gets tedious to have that on your mind. But then I think I have it on my mind all the time because, why am I here with you tonight? Scotty. Why am I going to Spookstock? Scotty. It's just so many things I do are just the Navy SEAL Foundation, a couple events a year, the Dogs for Our Brave golf tournament, and their whiskey or their bourbon event. It's like my whole life is...
Your Frogman swim. You're wearing the sweatshirt right
yes,
now.
Yes, that's in January. So it's kind of like it's a way of life. I sometimes I think I really am... I tried to be a wonderful mom, and I was very involved in Scotty's life, but it's kind of like I'm every bit as involved in Scotty's life as I always was. It's like, I guess when it's your children, that just never stops. But I didn't think I would be this involved with Scotty's life if he was gone. So that's it's very special to have that.
He made an indelible impression on all of our hearts. Like I said, I never knew him. But encountering folks that did know him, it's undeniable that he was a very special soul. And it's nice to see that people remember.
I know, and I'm also very proud of that. And then there's a little bit of me that wonders how much of me is that. Where does that come from? Is Dad or me or what was it about him that, although I did always tell him, try to be the kind of person that people want to be around.
Success.
Yeah.
Check. Check.
Yeah.
Well, Sandy, thank you for spending so much time with us and sharing these stories. It's very, very special to me, and I hope our audience gets a lot of value out of it, too. I know they will.
I hope so. And it was fun. I always like talking about Scotty.
Well, anytime you want to do it again, we'll be here.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
If you'd like to make a donation to the Defense Intelligence Memorial Foundation, please navigate to www.defenseintel.org. I'm Brian Drake, and this has been the Unredacted Podcast.